for like a couple of years in past and been debating since like 2 years and have debated in a lot of tournaments. I've lost the count. I guess it is around 40 tournaments as of now. So due to whatever I've learned on those tournaments, I'm going to teach you not a lot about debating, but rather more about what APD is, what is that format, and how you can actually understand the format. And if someone asks you a question about APD, you can answer it really well after this particular session. So remember, this session is not about you being able to speak and you being able to understand every particular speaker role, but rather this particular session is about you understanding what APD is, and so that we are familiarized with the format. And in the future sessions that you're going to have, that those sessions will be able to make you understand what you have to do in the debates. So remember, again, this session is mainly just an introductory session to introduce you to this format, not a session to make you a pro or a like legend in debating, because that takes time and that will take a lot of sessions which you are going to have in the furthermore of this week. So I've used a particular tournament's uh, PDF. Very simple understanding of APD will be taught in this particular session. We will begin with the basic answer to what the format is. An Asian parliamentary debate format is just basically a type of a parliamentary debate format, just like we have other types such as conventional debate, such as British parliamentary debate, such as Oxford Union. So there are a lot of debate formats. Just like those, there's one called Asian Parliament Debate, which is a three versus three format, meaning each team consists of three speakers and each team has a side. There's a government, there's an opposition. Other names for it could be proposition versus opposition, or like support versus oppose, whatever you want to name it. So you are either the government, you are either the opposition, and you will get to know that before your motion release itself. So no need to worry about that either. What is motion release? I will tell you in further of this particular session. Each debater speaks for 7 minutes, meaning the speech size of a speaker is 7 minutes. Now, 7 minutes consist of different sections, meaning the first and the sixth minute, sorry, the first and the last minute, no POIs can be raised. Now, what is POI? I will tell in furthermore of the session. There are total six speeches of 7 minutes. And then lastly, there is one speech each by each of the team, which is just 4 minutes, which is called a reply speech. How that order comes in is here. Okay, so first of all, the first speaker of the government side speaks, which is the Prime Minister, then the Leader of Opposition, then the DPM, then the DLO, then the government whip, and then the opposition whip. You can see till the opposition whip, which is the sixth speaker of this debate. It is a very crisscross manner. One is coming after the another, and each team is getting a chance to speak. But after that, the opposition whip speech, when that ends, the opposition reply comes in first and then the government reply. Why does the government speaks at the end? Because they did not get a chance to rebut in the first place, meaning the PM never came in second, but rather the PM came in first. And that is why the government comes in last, so that they have a chance to rebut, to reply to the opposition side and defend their side at the end. So that is why the government reply comes in last and the opposition reply comes in earlier. So till now you have understood that there are total eight speeches, but only six speakers. So how that works out? So basically, any speaker from the first two speeches, which is PM or DPM or LO or DLO, can give the reply speeches, but not the web speakers. Meaning, if you have gone and given the government whip speak or the opposition whip speech, you cannot give the reply speeches. Only your PM and DPM, only your DLO and LO can give the reply speech from your team. So that makes it a six speaker format, but 8 speeches in total. Before we move on with speaker roles, if anyone has any doubts regarding this zigzag format, please ask right now. Anything that has been told till now, if you have any doubt regarding that, just ask me right now.
So, what are the full
Yes?
forms of these abbreviations?
Okay, so the PM is basically the Prime Minister. The LO is Leader of Opposition, who is leading the opposition team. Then there's Deputy Prime Minister. Then there's Deputy Leader of Opposition. Then there's Government Whip, Opposition Whip, Opposition Reply, and then lastly, Government Reply. Is there any other question?
Can you explain this format again? I didn't quite get it right.
Sure. Okay, so in an APD format, it is a team versus team, meaning two teams are competing against each other. The first team is government, the second team is opposition. Each team consists of 3 members. Each debater gives a speech of 7 minutes, but there's another speech which is called a reply speech, just of 4 minutes, which is given by either of the speakers at the very end. In the first and the last minute of a speech, the opposition team or your opponents cannot ask a POI. So in total, there are 8 speeches per debate, 50 minutes of a debate, and there's a prep time for the motion, which is just 30 minutes. We will take more upon that motion and prep time, what that is, and what POIs are, what reply speeches are, and furthermore of the session. So no need to focus more upon this format. We will see and understand what it is at the very end of the session once again, after you know all these terms. Next thing that I told till now was basically the order of speech. The first person is Prime Minister, then comes the Leader of Opposition, then comes the Deputy Prime Minister, then Deputy Leader of Opposition, then Government Whip, then Opposition Whip, then Opposition Reply, and then lastly Government Reply. So that is the format and the order in which the speakers give their speeches. Now, as I told, it is a 3 versus 3 format. Then why are there 8 speeches in total? Everyone till the sixth speech gives one speech each. But the reply speeches are given by either the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, or the Deputy Leader of Opposition of your team. So let's say my team is government and I am government whip. Who will give my government reply speech? Only my PM and my DPM. One of these two people can give the government reply from my side. I cannot give it because I gave government whip speech. I hope that is clear by now. Are there any doubts by anyone
Excuse me,
else?
sir.
Yes,
Sir, what is the
yes.
eighth speech of?
Eighth speech. What?
What what is the
Called.
eighth speech? Yeah.
Okay. GR means government reply. OR means opposition reply.
No, sir, I am asking that what the eighth speech is.
About.
Yeah.
Okay. Reply speech. What reply speech is, we will discuss here. See. So don't worry about that. We have not understood what the speeches are. This was just the order of speech. The role of speeches will come here. Any other doubts from anyone else?
So, what a government whip?
Government whip is the third speaker of your team. The role of government whip and what the government whip has to do will be discussed in furthermore of the session. Okay, so I guess no one has any doubt regarding the order of speeches and what the basic format of APD is. We'll move on with the speaker roles. What is Prime Minister, what is Leader of Opposition, and everything else. So the first speakers of each of the teams. Each team's first speaker is called Prime Minister and Leader of Opposition. They are the leaders of their teams, meaning they will lead their team and they will be the first one giving their speeches. Now, why is that very much important and relevant to a debate? The first speaker of your team builds your case, it starts your case, meaning it has a lot of power, a lot of responsibility because they have to set your case, they have to form your case, build a great foundation so that the subsequent speakers of your team could rely upon it because they highly rely upon what your first speaker said and what your first speaker built upon. Because if your first speaker did not do well or did not do their job well, then the subsequent speakers will have a very hard time to explain things to audience and the judges. So let's understand the basic role of the first speakers of each of the teams. The prime minister and the leader of opposition somewhat have similar role. So let's discuss the commonality between these two speakers. Both of the speakers will define the motion. Defining the motion meaning they will explain what the motion is about. Let's say the topic is this house believes that plastic should be banned. Very simple motion. The Prime Minister and the leader of opposition are expected to define this motion, meaning they have defined the key terms. What is plastic? What kind of plastic they want to ban? What banning means? And what is the significance of this motion within society? Why are we discussing this particular motion? What is happening in the status quo? Who are the stakeholders? Everything will be discussed within the definition of this motion and giving a context to the debate. Now, what that those terms mean, what is stakeholder, what is status quo? The second thing that the PM does is give a status quo. Status quo is basically the current scenario of the world and how the world reacts to plastic. So they can say that in Southeast Asian countries or in South Asian countries like India, plastic is a relevant problem because the government does not have greater infrastructure to recycle plastic. Or they can say that in European nations, there's a highly great infrastructure to recycle plastic, and it has been really been helpful. They have even used it to fuel their own buses or whatnot. So that could give a status quo of how contrastic approach of governments in the world looks like and what has been the benefit or the con or the flaw of it for the society, for the people of those countries. Then comes in the stakeholder. Stakeholder is basically who are being impacted by this motion. Stakeholders meaning who is being affected and who should be discussed in this particular motion. So you can say that first of all, the government has been impacted because their policy needs to be changed and they are the ones who might be losing on a lot of funds because now they will have to pour in a lot of funds to make infrastructure so that plastic is banned or the plastic can be recycled. The second kind of section will be affected will be the people because if we ban the plastic, the people will need to change their habits, their or like what they buy. They will have to change a lot of things so that the ban of plastic could work out in this country. Then comes in the companies, who are the third stakeholder, the third section of society who will be impacted. The companies will be impacted because now they will have to look out for different alternatives or a different approach to their products. Meaning, let's say the Maggie manufacturer will have to look out to different alternatives to package their Maggie because till now they were packaging it in a plastic packet. So yeah, in these ways, the three sections of a society will be affected, and that is why they are the stakeholders of this motion. Now, what and why is stakeholder and status quo analysis by given by the first speaker is very much important because that is what sets the debate. Meaning, the subsequent speakers and the judge will understand what they have to talk about. The judges will able to understand what the motion is about and what the teams actually think of the status quo of the current scenario of the world, and what do teams understand by who is being affected by this debate, and who should the judge care about the most. Because if, let's say, someone comes in and says that the stakeholder of this motion is the plastic itself, and we should care about the like right and the fundamental right of the plastic to live, then obviously the judge won't care about this, because judge won't understand that what rubbish are you talking about, because what kind of emotional fundamental right a plastic could have it for itself, when we all know that plastic is a non-living thing. So yeah, in those particular scenarios, you understand that stakeholder analysis, who should we talk about, who should we care about, the people we should care about, the companies we should care about, the government we should care about, and that is what you present it as a stakeholder, and that is why the judge might be able to understand your side and might support your side, because they understand that you have well explained who the stakeholders are, what the status quo looks like, and why your arguments stand, which we will discuss more in the further session. What arguments are, how arguments are presented, and what can make those stronger. So till now, you had understood that the Prime Minister and the Leader of Opposition defines the motion, sets the motion, gives a context about what is the real life scenarios, what is the real life uh, structure of this motion, meaning the countries, what are the laws, and how is it benefiting or not benefiting the people. Secondly, you can give the stakeholders, basically telling us how the people will be affected, how the companies will be affected, and how the government will be affected. And lastly, you will give an argument. Now, what does giving an argument means? An argument is basically your opinion, your claim, your like idea of why this should be done, or something is better than the other, or the idea that you are presenting to prove something that you're trying to prove. For example, the argument given by the opposition side of this motion would be that plastic should not be banned because our country, let's say India, rely heavily on the plastic in general, even the single-use plastic, because if that is banned, the alternatives that are present in the society are very much expensive, and we are already facing a inflation issue in our country and in a lot of countries. So if we will just switch to an alternative, let's say paper cups or paper uh, packaging, then it will increase the expenses of the manufacturer, and thus increasing the price of the product, and thus increasing the inflation, because now people will have to buy the same product but at a higher cost, just because the packaging is costing a lot. So that is one of the argument that you can give from the side of opposition. So the argument is basically a reason why the judge or the audience should listen to you and should support you. That is something that the prime minister and leader of opposition could give, can give, and should give, and at least one argument should be present by them, so that it starts the debate, so that the other team has something to engage upon. And now, what is engagement? Engagement is basically a place or a spot of cross questioning, cross answering, cross defending yourself, and trying to answer and like have a conversation with your opponents. How that happens? Let's say the prime minister gives an argument, the leader of opposition can come in and rebut it. Now, what is rebuttal? Rebuttal is basically a answer to what the PM said, or maybe finding loopholes on what the PM said. Those loopholes could look like saying that the prime minister gave some of less, like not great facts. There was some sort of flaws in their reasoning. The reasoning that they're giving is not true. Whatever you have as a loophole that you must have found in your during your prep or during the prime minister was speaking, you can simply give it during your speech. So rebuttal is basically something that you want to ask the government, or something that you has a reply or a like cross question to the government, or something that you just want to say that. The government is not telling the truth, they're just telling a lie and just prove why it is a lie and how do you believe so. So that is called a rebuttal. That rebuttal is the only thing that is different for the leader opposition. Else, both of them have the similar role. If the prime minister comes in and gives a very, very vague definition of plastic, of banning, of how this is going to look like, then the leader of opposition has the chance to redefine the motion. They can simply say that, hey, they gave a wrong definition of plastic. They gave a wrong definition of what banning looks like and how the world will change in respect to that. So, yeah, so keep that in mind that when you're giving a definition, try to be as much as charitable and supportive to the other teams too, because you're going to simply give a definition which is very, very vague and very, very biased to other teams. So give a true definition, try to mold it for your own benefit, but not on a very large terms. So yeah, that is the role of the first speakers. Define the emotion, what is the status quo, give a context of the world. Lastly, stakeholders. What is a stakeholder? Who are being impacted? Why should we care about these stakeholders? Then give an argument. And then lastly, if you want to give a rebuttal, so give a rebuttal, else not. Anything, any question, any doubts you have for the first speakers of each of the teams?
So may I very humbly submit a request?
Yes, Gaurav.
So I think this particular content is available on internet as well as we have received the kit from where we can do it easily. So sir, if we can make this session more interactive, I think it will be beneficial for all of us.
In what sense interactive?
Sir, I mean we can speak and I mean we can actually do this format.
Okay, don't like this is the first day of your whole boot camp, so you need to understand that we cannot simply jump to practicing. That will come in the next 5 days, 6 days, and then lastly, we have a tournament too, where you can practice your skills and practice what you learned. The first day should be more about either ice breaking or either introduction to the format. I know you must have read that, like,
Yes,
you must have read
the
that
videos
about
also
the
circulated.
kits, but I'm pretty sure majority of students do not look at that kit, do not read PDFs. And even if they do read the PDF does not make sense to them. So that is why an introduction to all is necessary. So that even if 10% of them are benefited, well, that is benefit for us. Yes, Yash, Yashasvi, you had a
Yes,
question.
sir. Yes, sir. I wanted to ask you that how many arguments should the prime minister and leader of opposition have ideally?
Ideally, they should have one, at least one,
Okay.
but they can give more. But remember that an argument requires a lot of time. A good
Yes.
argument requires a lot of time. A
Hmm.
PM just given a lot of arguments, let's say they came and gave 5 arguments, I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure they must have not been able to explain even half of them because they do
Yes.
not have that much time. In 7 minutes, they have to define a motion, they have to give status quo, they have to give stakeholders. And if they do not give much time to that, just because they
Yes, sir.
want to give 5 arguments, that is not going to
Yes,
work
sir.
out for them. So, yeah,
Yes.
ideally one, maximum two, just give a very detailed argument, give a lot of time to
Yes.
it.
Hmm. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, Arti.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Arti. You can ask.
So, can you explain the difference between engagement and rebuttal?
Both of them are same. Engagement is basically cross questioning, cross answering, cross defending yourself. Rebuttal is also rebuttal is part of engagement. Engagement could also look like I asking a question to the opposition before my speech ends. That hey, I would like to ask the opposition how not banning plastic could help the society or help the environment. This could look like a question. I'm trying to create engagement. I'm trying to force the opposition to engage with us, to talk to us directly, rather than both of the teams having a separate debate, meaning both of them are not even answering each other, not questioning each other, not reporting to each other, and just having their own flow of debate. So that would look very parallel. Like it will look like two different debates are happening within a single debate. So engagement is basically linking a kind of a threads joining between the two teams. It would look like a question, it would look like a rebuttal, maybe answering each other, maybe finding flaws in each other. It could be very different things. Rebuttal is just a part of engagement, or maybe asking POIs. POIs also is a great form of engagement. Yes, Shambhavi?
Good afternoon, sir. I just wanted to ask that on the slide there is a pointer that says identify the burden of the government. Can you please explain this
Mhm.
point once again?
Okay, so the burden of proof or the burden of government is basically the thing that if the government is able to prove, they win. Basically, the tipping point of this debate, if you are able to prove that thing is true or that thing relies with the government, then you win the debate. So, how a burden of proof or the burden of government or the burden of opposition looks like? The government can come and say that, let's say the problem, what is the problem with plastic? It pollutes the environment. It is very hard to recycle because people dispose plastic everywhere, and how are we going to catch the plastic from those places and then recycle it? So, very much expensive, very much not feasible to recycle, a lot of issues consisting plastic at large. But then again, people are dependent upon plastic. Plastic is very cheaper. Inflation could come in. So, what could be the burden of proof for the government in this motion? They could say, I, I'm not sure this could be the great burden or the perfect burden, but a very simple burden could look like that if banning single-use plastic could help the society even as in a like let's say 10% way, the government is happy to like trade off that like banning plastic is still better than not banning it. Somehow the burden of proof relies on whether banning would help or not. Like, are people actually going to change? Is environment actually going to benefit? Is somehow the balance of environment and balance of inflation or dependence of people on plastic somehow going to change or not? So at the end, the burden of proof is basically here for the government that is banning going to help or not? Like, is banning the great solution or are there alternative solutions which are not that much harsh that might be present too? So the opposition can simply say that their burden of proof is basically this is not going to help. There are alternatives too. Like straight away banning something is not going to help. There are other stuff too. They can talk about those stuff. So that is their burden. So at the end, if the opposition is able to prove that yes, the straight away banning of plastic is not going to help as much as the government is trying to say, and there do exist some sort of alternatives, whatever the alternatives that they present, then the opposition wins this debate because that was the main burden of proof of the opposition, and they were able to prove it. Yes, Pragya?
Thank you, sir.
S- so can you hear me? Yeah. So you're basically trying to say that the burden of government is basically the responsibility of government. Like the government has to look out for
Yeah.
people welfare, right? And the LO is supposed
Okay.
to say
Remember,
the
the government and the opposition here is not the real life government and the opposition. The government basically means someone who supports the motion. They are not the real life governments. So it is not you trying to represent Prime Minister Modi. You are just the Prime Minister of this debate. So you are just trying to support the motion. You do not have any burden of caring about the people or the society. There are some motions in which you will have to be quite opposite. You will have to not care about about the people because I can just simply switch the motion. I can say this house believes that plastic should not be banned, or I can say that this house believes that uh, there should be no economic support for below poverty line people. This could be the motion, and the government has to support this motion. So yeah, just remember, government does not mean that you have to have support or empathy for people. I mean, yeah, till somewhat a level, but you're not the real life government. You're just a team trying to support the mission.
okay, so got it. So it's basically like rightness, no?
Uh, rightness is no, I don't think so. It depends on the motion. Some motions are very harsh, where you have to just care about something else, but not the people. Some motion could be just about the people, so you will have to care about the people. Some motions are about minorities. Some motions are about female feminism. So the dynamics and the metrics of what you have to care about changes depending on the motion. So it's not like the government has to always be very good, very thoughtful of the society, because you are not the real life government. You are just supporting the motion. So you can be as biased as possible, as not prime minister like as possible, real life prime minister. Yes, Manvi,
Good afternoon, sir.
good afternoon.
So the Prime Minister and the Leader of Opposition both have 7 minutes to speak. So I
Yes,
wanted to know if the Prime Minister first have to speak for 7 minutes and then the Leader of Opposition is supposed to give a reply of 7 minutes.
it's not like a reply. It's their own individual independent speeches. So yeah, both of them gives a 7 minute speech. First, the prime minister comes in, gives a 7 minute speech. Then after that speech ends, the leader of opposition comes in and gives a 7 minute speech.
Okay, so just in case the Prime Minister puts forward his argument and the Leader of
Mhm.
Opposition finds a flaw in it, so is the Leader of Opposition supposed to immediately come up with that, or we are have to wait for 7 minutes till the Prime Minister completes his speech?
Okay, so there are two aspects here. First of all, yes, they will have to wait. They cannot speak in between their speech.
Okay.
They will have chance, meaning they will have to wait for the PM to end their speech, and then during their speech, they can give a rebuttal. They can reply to it, and they can tell what the flaw is. Else, the second way is POIs. POIs are basically a question that you can ask the Prime Minister during his speech itself. So a POI can only be asked between the second and the fifth minute. So you cannot ask a POI on the first and the last minute. POI is
Okay.
basically a question that you ask to the Prime Minister. We will talk more about POIs in the further of this PDF. I guess it comes somewhere around there. So don't worry about that. What POIs
Okay.
is, we will talk about it. Yes,
Okay.
Aditi.
So you're basically trying to say that in the debate we are allowed to express our own points of view.
Yes, we are allowed to express our point of view within our speeches. We cannot interrupt someone else and say that, hey, you are lying, or hey, you should think about something else. The only way we can interrupt someone
Okay,
is POI,
thank you.
and we will talk more about POIs further. Yes, Corey?
Where exactly, like, how can we rebut the Prime Minister's opinion? Where in the speech?
At any point of our speech, like let's say I am
We
leader of
cannot
opposition,
start with the rebut, right?
we can start with the rebuttal.
Okay,
Like,
so there's no
for an
order
example,
for the speech.
no, there's no order of speech. Like within your speech, within your 7 minutes, you have freedom to customize your speech as you want. There's just things that you have to say, definitely say, which is define the motion, giving the status quo, giving the stakeholders. And this is also not compulsory. You can skip it, but remember, if you skip it, you will lose a couple of scores because then it will be hard for your team to win this debate. But yeah, there's no specific order, it is customizable. Yes, Gaurav?
Okay.
So if we have some prompting questions in between the speech of the Prime Minister, I mean, is there a
Mhm.
space for it, or is it applicable to all the participants on the other side?
Uh, if you have a question for the Prime Minister while he is speaking, only POIs can be raised.
I mean, we can only ask POI for Prime Minister.
No, no, we can ask POIs to everyone.
Okay,
Like
sir.
when the leader of opposition is speaking, let's say the LO is speaking, leader of opposition, then the Prime Minister can ask him a question through the means of POI.
Got it.
Yes, Anvesha.
Sir, I was curious if we have any negative marking
For what?
for our speeches. For our speeches, if we use like something which is uh, perhaps not required, or that will be considered as a waste of time, and hence a negative point will
Okay,
be rewarded, something like that.
there's no concept of negative marking within debates. There's just a concept of positive marking. Now, how that works, basically, the moment your speech starts, yeah, you have a score of 0. So the more you speak, the more inputs you give, the more well you do your speaker role, and you're able to tick mark all these points that have been stated here, your score increases. So let's say if you do not take any POI, if you do not ask any POI, it will not be a negative, but if you do, it will just be a positive for you. So, like, let's say if you had gotten 75 marks, as answering a PY would just might increase it to 76, maybe 77, but it will not decrease it. So yeah, there's a
Thank
negative
you, sir.
marking concept. Yes, Corey, Khushi.
So I wanted to ask a question related to the third point from the leader of opposition. So after the prime minister gives the means defines the emotion, so the leader of opposition can accept or reject. Like, what does that mean? Redefining the government's definition.
Okay, if the definition was somewhat true and does not harms the basic sportsmanship of a sport, then you should accept the definition. Accepting the definition meaning the leader of opposition can come and say that we as the opposition accept the definition of the government and believe that the definition is true. Now, what is the definition? Basically, definition of plastic, what banning looks like, what is the usage of plastic. These are the definitions of the motion. And I don't think the government will give very wrong definition. So in comments and it, yes, the definition was true. But now what does the rejection of definition looks like? Let's say the prime minister comes and said that plastic is a byproduct of wood. That is what they said. You know that that is not true. And you know that that just is a very, very wrong definition. So during your speech, you can begin with saying that we condemn the definition of the government and we do not support it. The true definition of plastic is basically blah, 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 whatever it is, right? So that is what the acceptance and the rejection of a definition looks like. Yes, Manan?
So I was asking that yes, sir. I was asking that in here we have been given 7 minutes to present our speech. So can it be like 6 minutes if the speaker can't find any more points, or can we lower it down?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, you can. It could be
So
even a 10-second speech.
there is no minimum limit.
There's a minimum limit.
Okay, and the reply speeches are 4 minutes instead of 7 minutes.
Yes.
And we have to prepare all of it in 25 minutes per speech.
It's upon you. Like teams follow different strategies. Like you cannot
Okay,
prepare a web speech or reply speech within your prep time because you do not know what the opponent said and
okay.
what your rebuttals were.
And
So a
so,
lot of
so,
part of your speech is very spontaneous, especially for the last couple of speakers. It is very spontaneous that you will have
sir,
to make.
per team
Yes.
we have four speeches, and we have to
Hmm.
prepare all of them in 25 minutes, or for every speech we have 25 minutes each.
No, no, no. For the whole debate, we have a 25 minutes prep time. And while the others are speaking, we can still prepare our speech and still modify our speech. So let's say while these two people are speaking, the next speaker, who's the DPM, can prepare what he's going to say. So that is what spontaneous prepping means. So not every speaker is going to get 25 minutes each before his speech. The
Okay,
whole
sir.
teams get 25 minutes collectively, and then the speeches start. Yes, Corey?
So the prime minister cannot rebut the LO, right?
I mean, what will they rebut? They do not heard what they said.
So
They can give a
after the
preemptive rebuttal though. What a preemptive rebuttal is basically, let's say you know that it is very predictable that the opposition will come in and say that plastic is a cheaper option and economically we should not ban it because people rely on plastic. You know that it is very much predictable that the opposition will definitely say this. So you can give a preemptive rebuttal by saying that, hey, we know that the opposition will come in and talk about how inflation is going to increase after this ban, but that is still a good thing that we as the government would want because plastic is highly detrimental to the environment and whatever reason we have. So that is what a preemptive rebuttal could look like. Rebuttal is basically giving a rebuttal even before someone spoke about it.
Okay. So who can rebut the leader of opposition's point?
The next speakers, which is PPM.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Sorry, Hriti.
Also, I was curious that if there is a concept of debarring in a committee.
I could not hear you.
So I was
Could you, s-
curious that if there is a concept of debarring in the committee.
could you explain an example?
So debarring, like if any speaker is violating what isn't supposed to be doing in the committee, so they can be debarred
Acha.
for like 10 or 15 years.
Basically like MUNs. No, no, no. We do not have
Okay.
those, not those kind of concept, but we do have equity. Equity is basically following some respective rules to make debate more comfortable and respectful for everyone. So if in speeches you try to interrupt a person a lot, like PM is speaking and you try to unnecessarily interrupt it, so that is a violation of equity and the judge will stop you and ask you to just unmute yourself and be quiet. So a lot of equity
Okay.
rules are there. I guess in furthermore sessions in furthermore days, we will talk about equity and what equity is. Yes, Shreya.
So I don't understand the meaning of substantive argumentation.
I cannot hear your voice clearly.
What does substantive argumentation mean?
I still not be able to hear. Could you just put your question on chat? Yes, Anshul.
So I couldn't even understand the meaning of status quo.
Okay, the status quo is basically the current scenario of the world, what the world looks like when we talk about this motion. So you can talk about how European nations have banned single-use plastic and how it has been beneficial for those countries. Or you can talk about how India or Asian countries are highly dependent on plastic and how much it pollutes the environment. So yeah, that is the status quo.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Srishti?
Yes, sir, I wanted to ask that during our speech, if someone asks us a POI and we do not know its answer, so what are we supposed to do?
You can either answer it or you can simply say that I do not want to answer it, or you can say that my subsequent speakers will answer it, or you can say that this question is not relevant to the motion. So yeah, a lot of things can be done.
Thank you.
Okay, before we take Manan's question, Shreya has a question. What does substantive argumentation mean? Substantive argumentation means basically giving an argument. There's no different meaning. Substantive argumentation basically means an argument to support your debate, which is linked with the status quo and the stakeholders that you gave earlier. There's a connection, there's a linkage. Argument to prove why your burden is satisfied and your side is better than the other. Yes, Maran?
Sir, I was asking if our one of our teammates knows the answer of a POI, but we don't. So can we ask them mid speech for the answer and then answer it on our like?
No, that won't be possible. So that is why if you have a lot of doubts when answering a POI and you know that maybe your teammates will be able to answer it well, you can simply say that my subsequent speaker will answer it. So let's say you do say it. Now the leader of opposition is speaking, giving their speech. During they are speaking, you now have a prep opportunity to talk to your team and discuss what should be a better answer to that POI. Yes, Shambhavi.
Sir, please can you explain the meaning of substantive argumentation once again?
Substantive argumentation is basically giving arguments after you have given a foundation of a debate. Substantive means that something coming after the another that comes after something else. So yeah, argumentation. It is basically giving argument in simple words.
Thank you, sir.
I guess I will take further more questions later because we'll have to finish all these speaker roles. Okay, so the Deputy Prime Minister and the Deputy Leader of Opposition these two have similar roles. There's no difference between these two. The Deputy Prime Minister comes in third in the order of a debate after Prime Minister and after Leader of Opposition. The Deputy Prime Minister have a very simple role and the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Both of them have similar role. They have to rebut their opponents, meaning DPM, the Deputy Prime Minister, will rebut the points of Leader of Opposition. Deputy Leader of Opposition will rebut the points of Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. And if you could read the first point, if you need to clarify the stance and burden of the government. Let's say your leader of opposition came in and found of some of flaws and asked a couple of questions to the government. So then the deputy prime minister can still defend themselves, can still answer those questions, can still say that the rebuttal that the opposition gave is not true and how your argument still stands and still is better than the others. Extend team's case, meaning give more arguments. So the major arguments or the major explanation of an argument comes within these two speeches because they do not have any role of giving any conclusion. They do not have to do that. They do not have to give any definition, no stakeholder analysis, no status quo analysis. So they have a lot of free time. So that is why they have to give the majority like crux of your argument, your analysis, your reasoning, and be able to defend your case. So a major role of these two speeches is basically clarify the stance, defend yourself or your burden, rebut your opponents who have spoken till now. Lastly, extend team's case. Team's case could be extended by giving more arguments, more rebuttals, more explanation, more examples, a lot of aspects which will be taught to you guys in tomorrow or let's say day after tomorrow's session. Okay. Uh, any doubts within these two speeches? Because there's no much happening with these two speeches. It's very straightforward definition that give arguments, give rebuttals, defend yourself. Yes, Shreya?
I wanted to ask if we are allowed to rebut an argument which is like just not said just before our speech. For example, if I am the deputy leader of opposition and I want to rebut
Mhm.
and I don't agree with something which was said by the prime minister, but my partner
Yes, you
missed the
can
point.
do it.
We can.
Yes, you can do it. Yeah. Even the opposition whip can rebut the point of prime minister. So yeah,
All right.
there's no limits. Yes, Gaurav.
Sir, I had a prompt that what do they exactly mean by the phrase the burden on the opposition or government? I mean, can you elucidate on it?
Okay, so the prime minister and the opposition in the second point identify the burden. Identify the burden. Here says they must have given a burden of proof, burden on the government, burden on the opposition. They must have mentioned it in somewhat manner. Now, when the prime minister did it, the leader of opposition must have said that no, this is not the burden of the government. The burden need to prove. Sorry, the government need to prove something else. The government has some other kind of burden. The Deputy Prime Minister can come and say that no, that is not our burden, but rather our burden is what the Prime Minister said, and give the reasons why they believe so, why the opposition's perspective of burden is not true, but rather our burden is what the Prime Minister said, and not the opposition, what the opposition tried to say. I hope that
So
makes
it's,
sense.
it's something like allegations or the preposterous statements which are passed by the other team.
Yes, they must have said that the government is trying to sway away from their burden and make their burden very easy, but rather their burden is very hard, and them telling us what that hardness looks like, what is the burden, and then the deputy prime minister come and say that no, the opposition is not telling the truth, but rather the prime minister said the right thing, and how our burden is what the prime minister said still stands and still is better. Yes, Arti? Arti, you're not audible. Yes, Suvir.
How many new arguments should the DPM present?
At least two. Like in a whole debate, we expect that a whole team to present three arguments. Like it's there's no minimum limit, there's no maximum limit, but a good debate or a good team looks like at least someone who gives three arguments. So the one argument is given by prime minister, two is given by deputy prime ministers or the deputy leader of opposition. So in total, three arguments by the whole team.
Okay, understood.
Although you can still give two, just two, maybe just one, but remember that will not help your case at large. Okay, so our this question is, if the topic is that plastic should be banned, then what is the burden of bioeconomy? If like if the topic is plastic should be banned, the burden of on the government is to prove that the problems that exist in society, let's say environmental problems or recycling problems, is somehow solved by banning it. If it is not being solved, then what's the point of banning? That is the burden of government. They have to somehow prove that banning plastic will cater and resolve the problems of the status quo. Does anyone have any other question regarding these two speeches or the or whatever thought till now about previous speakers? Okay, cool. No doubts. Okay, yeah. Remember one thing, presenting new ideas and new arguments ends here, meaning the next speeches that we are going to talk about will cannot have new ideas, new arguments. So this is your last opportunity to give newer arguments. As you can read here, extension of a team's case can be done by either speaker adding analysis to existing ideas or introducing new ideas into the debate. So from here on, you cannot give new arguments. You can only give more analysis and more reasoning to the pre-existing argument given by your team. So what is web speaker? The third speaker of each of the teams is called a web speaker. Um, just wait a second. I will just talk about it. Yeah. Okay. So the role, a role of a web speaker is to settle the debate, meaning end the debate, give a conclusion to it, tell us how they win. So yeah, you can read the first line. It simply says and summarizes all of it. The role of web speaker is to settle the debate in her or his team's favor. The most common method by doing so is testing the issues, tell us how your solution solve those issues, and why your team wins against the other team, what were the ideas presented, give any particular missing extension or reasoning that your previous speakers might have missed upon, but do not give any new arguments because you are not allowed to give new ideas. As you can read in the third point, no new ideas allowed. New rebuttals to existing ideas are still, however, accepted and highly encouraged, meaning that web speakers' whole speech should be about how they win a conclusion and mainly rebuttals. Give as many as rebuttals as possible. And I guess that's it. This litmus test for water ski material. It is an analysis derivation. Now, there may be some points that you believe so extension or analysis to the pre-existing arguments. But remember that all kind of new analysis could somehow be considered new argument by your opponents. And they can say that, hey, this whip speaker gave a new argument. But follow this very simple litmus test to defend yourself that no, it wasn't a new argument, but rather a new rebuttal or new analysis that are presented. So is the analysis derivable from the arguments already made by his teammates? If you're able to prove it, then it is not a new argument, but rather a new analysis. Okay, Ishita, it is inadvisable for the government web to present new ideas because now the other team does not have chance to rebut it. They do not have time to prepare their rebuttal. How? Let's say the government web gives a new argument, a whole new argument, which is the strongest argument in this debate. But now the opposition web is the last speaker of their team. They do not have time to prepare a rebuttal. So it is not fair for them to get a strongest argument from your side, or a new argument from your side at the very end of this debate. Same goes when the opposition whip is speaking. Now they are the last speaker of this debate. No government speaker is coming after it. So if the opposition whip gives a new argument, how are you going to give a rebuttal to it? How are you going to defend yourself after it? So yeah, that is why no new material is allowed. So basically, the web speaker's role is giving conclusion to a debate, telling us how you win, comparing both of the cases. How that looks like, you can say that in the point of clash of inflation, my team presented these points, their team presented those points, and here is why we win the point of clash of inflation. In the point of clash of environment, we win this debate due to these reasons. In the point of clash of uh, development, we win for because of these following reasons, whatever those reasons may be. So that is how web speaker can proceed and can talk about. Yes, Pragya.
Sir, can you please elaborate again on how we can make new analysis?
Okay.
You were saying
So
just now.
let's say the prime minister or the deputy prime minister of a team gave a particular argument about development for any particular motion in a very hypothetical situation. So the TPM talked about development. They gave a particular reasoning to why development is good in your side, whatever those reasons may be. Now somehow in during their speeches they missed a couple of reasoning. They missed a couple of examples. They do not have time now, but the whip is still there. The whip can come in and say that for the argument presented by my previous speaker about development, I have some more reasoning to prove why development will be better on our side. Some more examples I have presented and I have brought with myself. So that is what would look like new reasoning, new analysis, and new examples. Because they are still talking about the previous argument about development. He did not present a new argument, but rather presented more in-depth analysis to pre-existing argument. This summary,
So my doubt just got cleared through the conversation. Thank you.
great. I guess no other doubts. If someone have any doubt about regarding web speakers, please ask. Yes,
Sir,
Kushi.
in the last line of the slide, it's mentioned that government can sometime very rarely introduce a new matter, but opposition is completely averted to do this. So, may I know what's the, I mean, cognizant reason or the rationale behind this?
Okay. Um, in some circumstances, the government can bring it, but it is still highly unadvisable as written here. But why such an advantage to the government? Why still they can bring, but do not bring it, please? So yeah, why? Because after the government whip, opposition whip still is there. they still have a chance to reply, they still have a chance to rebut. But the opposition whip is strictly not allowed to give any new material because there's no one from the government coming in and giving a speech after it. So the government does not have a chance to reply to it. So that is why there's some sort of biases for the government.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Shell has a question for the motion plastic should be banned. Is the burden on the population side? Is that banning plastic will cause inflation and a lot of adjustment need? That is not a burden, but that is an argument. A burden of the opposition for this motion would be that banning plastic is not going to solve the problems that the government is trying to present or the problems that exist in the society. Now, what are the problems? Environment is a problem, inflation is a problem, manufacturing is a problem, products reaching and accessibility of those products is a problem. So, yeah, a lot of problems exist in society, and banning plastic won't help it. So, that is a burden of
So,
the
sir,
opposition.
the opposition just has to prove that the burden of the opposition is not very strong. That the banning plastics will not actually solve all the problems the government has presented.
Yes, the banning plastic won't solve it, and also the opposition can come and talk about alternatives. Like full-on banning of a blanket ban won't have help, but rather educating people to use less single-use plastic might help. So yeah, alternatives can be presented. Uh, does anyone answer your question?
So could you
Yes,
please,
Kushi.
explain the second point again? How means what are these common methods with some examples?
Most common method of doing this is to compartmentalize the debate into different issues, show how and why you think wrong. Okay, so as I said earlier, there must be some sort of arguments presented by both of the teams. So when comes there comes in a point of clash. Point of clash is basically an argument for which the opposition did give a rebuttal, or an argument of the opposition for which your team gave a rebuttal. So there was an engagement for that argument for from both of the teams. So you can come in and talk about and compare the sides by saying that for the argument of inflation, my side, which is the government, still wins this debate because you were able to prove how that argument or that rebuttal is stronger than the argument itself and how we were able to reply to it in a better way. So you can give reasons onto why your rebuttal somehow damaged the argument of the opposition and wins against the opposition, even on the point of inflation. Or if you are the opposition, you can talk about in the point of clash of environmental benefits, we still were better than the government because we gave these rebuttals, we gave these reasoning, whatever they were. So that is what a like comparison looks like. That is what a why your team won looks like, or distinct issues, and then comparing it looks like. Yes, Corey.
Sorry, I had the same doubt.
Hmm, hmm. Yes, Manvi.
Um, so, just in case any speaker exceeds the 7 minutes of the speaking limit and speaks for like 7.5 or 8 minutes, so are any marks deducted for that?
No marks are deducted. Anything said beyond your time limit is just not noted or considered by the judge. So let's say if you gave your world's best argument after exceeding your time limit, that won't help you because the judge won't mark it. The judge won't credit those arguments. So it would be like that argument was never ever presented.
Okay.
Arti has a question. What is the point of inflation? I meant the argument of inflation. The point of crash is basically a point where the two teams engaged upon. The point of inflation is basically the argument of inflation that the opposition might have presented for this motion. Okay, any other question, or should we move to the reply speeches? I guess we should, because the session needs to end in 10 minutes. Yeah. So reply speeches. Why reply speeches? Reply speeches are basically a summary of the debate, summary and biased oral adjudication. Now, what is oral adjudication? Oral adjudication is something that a judge will give when they tell you their verdict, who won. Oral adjudication is basically the reasoning that the judge gives to prove why someone wins against the other. How that looks like? Basically, after the debate ends, the judge will take some time, think about the debate, think about the reasons and why someone wins against the other, and then they will give their verdict. They will give a speech themselves, which is called oral adjudication, where they will present their reasoning and defend their verdict. They will tell you how someone wins against the other. So, in oral adjudications, it is basically justifications of why someone wins against the other. The reply speeches is basically a speech that the teams present as a biased oral justification. Basically, after the opposition whip, first of all, the opposition reply comes in. Herein, and during reply speeches, no PYs can be asked. So remember first thing. Second thing, it is of 4 minutes. Third thing, it is basically a summarization of the debate and a biased oral justification, where the opposition just comes and tells us why we win against the other. So it is somewhat similar to a web speaker. So consider it as an extension of a web speaker, but here you cannot give new argument, new rebuttals cannot be given. Obviously, new arguments cannot be given. New flaws cannot be presented by you for your opponents because you had a lot of time in your previous speeches. Here is you have to just talk about what happened in debate, what happened in the first six speeches. So nothing new can come in. Only new examples can come. That is the only thing that you are allowed to present new. Everything else is just a summary of the debate. Before we move on with the questions, Ishita had a question on chat. So if the best argument is presented after the time limit and it is not considered, can the person after that person? Yes, Ishita. Let's say the Prime Minister presented the best argument after the time limit, and yes, obviously it will not be considered. So yeah, the Deputy Prime Minister or your subsequent speakers can give that argument, can restate their argument. Yes, Anshul? Anshul?
Yes, sir, I wanted to ask that are the marks given according to each speaker or the marks are given to each team?
Each speaker.
Okay, so one person wins the debate, not the whole team.
No, 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 no. The cumulative of the team score decides who wins the debate. So each speaker gets their own score, but at the end of the debate, all the four scores of your team is added and then compared with your opponents, and then lastly that tells who wins debate. Yes, Shambhavi?
So, if possible, can you please, rather, I just wanted to ask in biased oral adjudication, is the judge expressing his verdict in support of the team who's actually been able to win the debate, the decision?
Biased oral adjudication is given by the teams, not the judge. I think the similar question has been presented by Aarti. Why biased oral adjudication is something that you give within your reply speech, within those moments. Why is it biased? Basically, you can be a little biased during your reply speeches, so you don't have to care about your opponents. You can tell us in a biased way why your team wins, why some arguments still stands, why the arguments presented by the opponents were bad. So yeah, you can be a bit biased, but that does not mean that you do not give any reasoning onto why you win or justifications on why you win. That is what a biased oral education is, that you can be biased for your own team. An oral adjudication is the justifications given by the judge after all these speeches, after the debate ends.
All
Yes,
right. So
Corey?
biased oral, so just one more thing. It's
Yes.
basically for the speaker who's presenting their point.
Biased oral adjudication is presented by the reply speaker
Right.
within those 4 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
So, what exactly do we have to do? Like, we have to summarize all the points given by the previous speakers in this speech, right?
Not all, the best ones. Like, what were the relevant points at the end of the debate and
So,
how
we
you
have
win?
to, in a biased way, we have to convince the judge that the when like we should be the ones
Yeah.
winning. Our
Yes,
argument
its
stands
reply
better.
speeches is basically convincing the judge, somehow be able to prove why your team wins and give reasons onto that, justifications for it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Kushi?
So I had the same doubt, but our means each team gets their own bias speaker, and also that means if like they have to speak for their team, but also conclude the points of the other team as well. That maybe these points.
Yes, like during the 4 minutes, you can not just simply talk about yourself or your own team because that won't help, right? So you will have to talk about the what the opponents presented and how the opponent's argument is worse or bad than ours. Vashri, please mute yourself. Cool. There's a question on the chat, said how the teams are going to decide. What? I cannot understand your question. Going to be decided. Teams
Yes,
are basically,
so I want to ask,
yes,
like, there are three members in one team. So how are we going
mhm,
to be in that team? We will be decide, or you will give us that team?
you will decide. You can team up with your friends.
At what time this will be going to happen, sir? In 2 3 days, sir.
Oh, for the tournament.
Yes, sir.
I don't know about the rules of this tournament. Like I have not been briefed upon. But
So
in
will we
usual
have a
competitions,
simulative debate session, something like that, before
uh,
the tournament?
I don't know. I'm not the OC, so I'm just the trainer for this session. So I just know what's going to happen in this session, not on the future sessions or what is going to happen in the tournament.
Okay, sir, understood.
Sir, I wanted to ask, as there are three people in like one side, for example, three people in the government and three people in the opposition. So there are four people, right? If we add the reply speaker and the other people, so how is it a 3v3 format then?
Three people, four speeches.
So
People
one
and
person.
speeches are different thing. Yes,
Okay,
one
so one
person
person.
gives two speech,
Okay, thank you.
but that person cannot be the web speaker. That's the only rule. Yes, Sanvi? Yes, Sanvi.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you're audible.
The deputy prime minister gives two speeches, right?
Either the deputy prime minister or the prime minister.
All right.
Like
Thank you.
the government reply can be given by the first two speeches. Sorry, the first two speakers. Same goes for the opposition reply. The first two speakers can give it, not the web speaker. Very simple rule, web speaker cannot give the reply speech.
Thank you, sir.
Uh, Before we take further more questions, let's end this session with the concept of POI. What is POI? POI is basically a question that you ask your opponents while they are speaking. It should be between the second and the fifth minute, meaning you cannot ask a POI in the last and the first minute. It should not exceed 15 seconds. It should be a question, not a rebuttal. You cannot ask a rebuttal within a speech. So it should be a question that your opponent can answer. So it should be a questionable question, not a sarcasm. Can be offered after first and before 6 minutes. Each speaker should take at least one. This is advisable, not compulsory. So don't worry, no negative marking will be there. Just as advisable so that the debate is engaging. Yes, Riddhima?
Is there any limit to how many POIs you can ask in one speech?
There's no limit, but you can only ask a POI after 20 seconds that you asked earlier. So meaning the gap between two POIs should be at least 20 seconds.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Um, there's motion selection and types of motion, I guess. This can be done in furthermore sessions. That's it for today's session. We have talked more than 1 hour, 20 minutes. Mm, yeah, thank you so much, guys. If you have any doubt, you can still stay, else you may leave. Yes, Shrishti?
Thank you. Sir, I wanted to ask that if there is no PY from the opposition, can a person from the same team, can we ask our teammate just to get us marks? Can we do that?
No, you cannot. What you can do, let's say the opposition is not asking a POI, you can simply during a speech say that, are there any POIs? Does the opposition look like when you ask any POI? You can give them 3 seconds. Three, two, one, go. And then if they don't ask, you can say that, okay, maybe the opposition agrees with my points and they do not have any questions or they do not find any flaws in my points. So you can be sarcastic in somewhat manner, and this could show the judge that you were confident enough to take a POI and you were ready to take a POI. It's just the opposition who did not ask. So there will be still a positive point for you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Shambhavi?
So right now on the screen on number 7 and 8, there are GR and OR. Sir, can you please tell me the full forms once again?
GR is government reply, OR is opposition reply.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Vimansa.
Yes, sir. So actually, I wanted to ask the concept of reply speaker. Like, suppose the two first speaker, then they can reply, but on what grounds they can reply? Like in MUNs, we have that. Suppose some country has mentioned the other country, and that country has got the right to reply. On what grounds in debates we have the concept of replying?
There's no grounds. There's a compulsory reply speech that has to be presented by the teams. So you do not have to wait for a reason to reply. You just know that yes, a reply speech is coming and one of my teammate has to give it.
Okay.
Yes, Goranvi.
Yes, sir, I just wanted to ask, can a POI lead to a rebuttal?
You are made a rebuttal.
Like we are having like we can question more than one at the same time. We can't do that.
Only one question can be asked during a POI.
Thank you.
Yes, Corey.
How many POIs can be there in the entire debate?
As many as the teams want.
So, like, we can ask after the person speaking ends the debate, ends their point, we can.
No. When let's say the PM has ended their speech, then obviously no POS can be asked to Prime Minister because their speech already ended. But Prime Minister can still ask POIs to others.
So, when can, like, you ask the POI exactly in between or like after ending?
During the speech, but not during the first minute and this last minute of the speech. Let's say I'm speaking, I'm the Deputy Prime Minister. My first minute of my speech has ended, and it's let's say I'm midway in my speech. Then during that time, anyone from the opponent can ask me a POI.
So, we, even if the Deputy Prime Minister is going in the flow and has completed a point and they're on to the next one, we can stop them in between and ask.
You can raise your hand and ask for PY. Yes, that's what PY is for, to break their flow. Let's say your opponent is speaking in a very nice way, and it's somehow proving a really great point. The flow is amazing. And you want to break that confidence, you want to break that flow. You can ask for PY.
Okay, so each speaker should at least take one POI. That was the point given. So one
Advisable,
POI
not a
is
compulsory.
like one POI you have to like give or you have to answer.
One POI you have to answer.
Okay,
Again, it is advisable just to make a debate engaging. It is not compulsory, so no negative marking will be there.
okay. Thank you.
Yes, actually.
Good morning, sir. I had a question regarding the question in which the PYs will be concerned. My question to you was, are we allowed to counter question the answer given by the respective speaker?
Count a question. I couldn't understand your question.
Like for example, I ask a question to the speaker and then he replies back, but I'm not satisfied with the answer that
Mhm.
they have given. Am I allowed to counter question it?
Not during the speech itself. Like, let's say I asked a PY, they answered it. I cannot say that, hey, your answer is not satisfactory. You do not understand my question well. You can either ask a counter question through the means of a whole new PY with a gap of at least 20 seconds, or you can simply tell that particular unsatisfactory factor of their answer during your own speech. So let's say you asked to provide to Prime Minister and you are the leader of opposition. Their speech ended and now you have your own speech. You can say that I asked them a POI and their answer to that POI was not correct and it's not satisfactory due to the following reasons.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, Rashmi.
Good afternoon, sir. So I just want to ask that, as Srishti asked, that if we haven't asked for any POI from opposition team, and after the following all the procedure that you have told, we'll get the marks or not. Like we are ready for the POI, but if they're not asked, so if we get the like we'll get the marks or not.
If we ask a POI, but what? I cannot understand your question. You're not audible clearly.
Yes, yes. I said that if we haven't asked for any POI from the opposition team, and after following all the
Mhm,
procedure that you are told, we'll get the marks
mhm.
or not. Like we are ready for the POI, but if we not ask this question, so what will we do at that time?
The best thing would be if your opponents are not asking any POIs to you, you can simply just give them an opportunity. You can say that now we'll take a POI from opposition. Three, two, one, go. You can say that, or you can say that, does the opposition have any POI? You can ask them directly within your speech. And if they do not ask, then it is their fault. So the judge will not discredit you in any way. They will give you a positive mark because they will see that yes, you were ready to accept a PY.
Yes. And the next question is that we can follow up the POI, like we can reply back option for it, like in other elements.
As in, like if you have a another question for the same POI or an extensive follow-up question, that can be only asked through the means of another new POI. So not while they are speaking, but as a whole new POI
Okay.
with a
Thank you,
gap
sir.
of 20 seconds at least.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
I guess that's it. Yes, Corey.
I had one last doubt about the POI. So
Yeah.
we have a counter POI, so we have to wait for 20 seconds, but the point has already
Hmm.
changed. So can we like go back to that same point they were speaking on and then like
Yeah, you can. You can.
okay.
Cool. I guess that's it for the session, guys. It was a really great conversation with all of you. I hope you understood the basic format and the basic rules of APD. Yes, Vartika. No, sorry, question. Question.
Uh, yes, sir. So I was asking, like, if the opposition team is asking me the question which I have already given the answer of that, so do the opposition team has the rights to ask that similar question once again to me if he or she hasn't
They have the
understand it?
right to ask the same question, but you have the right to not answer it again because you can simply say that I guess this question was answered by my subsequent by my previous speaker or within my speech in the early aspects of speech itself. You can say that this was answered earlier. If you know that in somewhat manner your future argument is going to answer this question, you can say that I will answer this question with the means of my future argument.
Okay, sir. And is the topic, I mean, has finished about that? I mean, the topic has changed. So can we just start that topic back which we was talking about before to just once again
Yes.
confirm the whole.
Yeah, after answering the PY, you can say that, okay, I was talking about whatever you were talking about before the PY, and you can complete it.
And so till when this video will be, means presentation will be uploaded on the group?
This presentation, I will send it to the OC and ask them to share it with you guys.
Thank you. Because the message has been come that the class will be recorded and sent it.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
said
that
after
will be
30
also
minutes.
done.
Thank you.
Yes, Trishki?
Yes, sir, I wanted to ask that during my speech, if somebody asks me a PO and I answer it, and then somebody again asks, and my entire time gets exhausted in that. So, and I'm not able to present my points which I had. So, what am I supposed to do then?
Hmm. After answering one POI, it is advisable for the speaker to not take any more POIs if they have material to speak about, if they have arguments to speak about. So you can just not accept any POI. They must be raising their hands to ask a POI. You can say that I won't take any POIs anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Uh, can I ask a question on the same one?
Yes, Gordon.
So if like I am the one asking the POI and they have already answered one, but that one is actually more relevant. So how am I supposed to ask that if the person speaking is not taking any more POIs?
If your new POIs, you know that your new POI is stronger, then I don't think it was a mistake on your own side that you do not plan well. Because already expect the speaker to not take more than one POI because for them POIs is something which interrupts them. So yeah, try to have a better planning from your own side so that your best question is asked as a PY, not
Okay,
just a useless
it
question.
is based on their point that they have spoken. So if they're not taking, can we actually uh, put that question in another speech that we have to give? Suppose the
No,
person.
there's like everyone's no, there's no thing like lecture passing, asking questions through the means of chairperson. There's nothing like that. Although, if you
Can
have
we
a very great
point?
question, yeah, I get that. If you have a really great question, you want to ask it. You can simply ask it during the speeches, right? You can say that we wanted to take a POI which the government did not accept it, and the POI was whatever the question is, and we would like the government to answer this question. So within the speech, you can still convey that question through the means of your own speech.
Okay, and the government and the opposition both can ask POIs, right?
Yes, both can ask POIs to each other.
Okay.
So suppose if I am at a point of my speech where I'm discussing the nitty gritty or the kernel of the speech which I'm speaking, and if somebody
Mhm.
interrupts by a POI at that time, do I have a right to reject or to deny that POI at that time
You have
straight
a
away?
right to reject or accept a POI due to any reasons that you want. So there's no like correct reason or correct metrics. Maybe तुम्हारा mood नहीं था, तुमने नहीं लेना question. So that could be a reason. Any reason, like it's up to you whether you want to take a question or not. You can reject at any point.
Thank you, sir. So can we leave the session, sir?
Yes, yes. We will end the session here itself. If you still have any questions, I'm hopeful that your furthermore trainers will be able to answer it because everyone is capable within this uh, like trainer community. So yeah, best of luck for the further sessions and the tournament that is coming up in the weekend. Thank you so much for the session, guys. Bye
Thank you
bye.
so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you,
You had a
sir.
lot of patience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye bye.
Sarma Bhaiya. I think this is it for the meeting. We should be ending by now, right?
Yes, yes, we should.
Okay.
Bye bye.